we're now going into happy hour, where we discuss any other business. Gentlemen,
Yes.
I have a statement for you. And this
Okay.
statement is the topic of today's happy hour.
Sure.
And that is, but that's what my character would do.
Well, then it's fine. Then it's perfectly okay. Whatever you want to do I mean, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
I'm appreciating the difference in reactions.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
hold
I
on.
mean,
maybe
there is-
it's not fine. Maybe it's not fine. No, this is a real issue, which
Yeah.
you become aware, I think, as you become more experienced as a D&D player.
Because
Because
there are two distinct versions of it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, Dad, do you want to give us the example of the more positive?
Sure. So, we referenced him earlier, but once upon a time in a Waterdeep campaign we played, I played a character called Azorius Lovecraft. Azorius Lovecraft was a character that I'd had in mind for ages, and Dragon Heist would serve to be his kind of prequel, his coming of age, if you will. I know that Azorius is a proficient arcane swashbuckler. I also know that he is a naive and gullible fool.
Yes.
He's the sort of person who would accept back alley city tours from nefarious individuals with cudgels and not think anything better of it.
That was true, yeah.
Azorius had a "it's what my character would do" moment when he accidentally joined a demonic cult.
How do you accidentally join a demonic cult?
Didn't they have a bathhouse or something?
So there was a bathhouse. It was like a spa.
They had a really good reception.
Had a really, really nice reception. There was city outreach programs.
Those pamphlets were just too good to ignore.
The pamphlets were incredible.
There were pamphlets.
Azorius, over the space of many sessions, ended up handing out these pamphlets throughout the city, unknowingly recruiting more people to this demonic cult.
Yeah. None of our characters were surprised. All the players, none of the characters, all the players were surprised. We were just like, "Yep, that's what he would do."
Yeah, there was a city reinvigoration project which involved some art exhibits on the sides of the giant statues throughout Waterdeep, which may or may not have been demonic sigils that Azorius was far too naive to realize the importance of. Now, Azorius did not know what was going on. I
did not.
And the rest of the players, and most importantly, Julia, the DM, definitely knew what was going on. But it was a very calculated, in inverted commas, mistake. I deliberately allowed Azorius to make this horrendous decision because I knew I wouldn't allow it to become too disruptive. It was creating comedic points, and also, kind of importantly, especially where, for me as a DM, it was furthering the plot. It was a constructive series of bad decisions.
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. It didn't bother anyone that you were joining our enemies, right? Like this was. It was good.
And I mean, it came to the point where I was, if anyone was starting to challenge me on it, I was able to, as a player, tongue in cheek, as Azorius, be able to diffuse their concerns. Usually with the handing of a pamphlet, because they were really good pamphlets.
So it's interesting because that's like a positive example of that's what my character would do, which I thought it was only going to be negatives, and I'm realizing, like in the same campaign, Dan, I had Damien, my barbarian rogue, and we were meant to be searching for a Nimblewright in the Waterdeep campaign, and conveniently, a hippogriff rider landed right in front of Damien, my barbarian, as he was walking by, and me and the DM had this interaction. And Damien was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to continue searching. Bye-bye." And the DM just went, "But you were meant to." Nope. And my character just carried along because that's what my character
would do.
Would just like not think that. Ask the hippogriff rider for a ride or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some probably way back with group because. As we've discussed in the past, group was a lovable idiot. I've definitely I couldn't remember any prime examples, but I've definitely had one of those, he's done something with the rest of the party going, well, what are you doing? It's like, yeah, but that's kind of what he would do.
Yes.
But then you pointed out it's important that it's it's not. This mustn't be disruptive or detrimental. And I think people need to find it funny. There has to be a funny side to it. I think.
I mean, there is the other version, and I'm going to be very clear on this one. We're not going to mention any examples in case the people whose the examples about end up listening. And I don't want to anger these people, but
name and shame. Name and shame, Dan.
No. Like these people, I still want to hang out with and play with. But
we will put the names in the commentary. We'll put their names.
But I have definitely played with people. All Anton, they are. I was trying to spare your feelings, Anton, and you just.
I don't have feelings. Go ahead.
But I've definitely had games where everything has been derailed because those words were uttered. You know, the fight has gone sour because the words, but that's what my character would do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely nearly had a character die in a non-combat encounter because someone uttered those words. But that's what my character would do.
I think one of the big differences between a good "it's what my character would do" and a bad "what my character would do" is when the outcome is worse for your character, for example. So a lot of the time when you get the when you get the shitty "it's what my characters would do," it's because the player usually wants to gain or benefit off the back of this bad call. Whereas, for example, with Azorius or Damien, like, we made our lives harder.
You deliberately used,
we deliberately made our lives harder because it's what our characters would do, which is kind of counterproductive, right? But no, it was world building.
You can tell the difference between the two by the player's reaction. If the elbow goes on the table, it's going to be a bad one. If the player sits there and goes, but it's what my character would do. If you're looking at the player and they look like, I shouldn't do this. If their hand is on their face, you know it's going to be the good kind. Yes. But if they lean across, if their eyebrows are moving a lot, or they're smiling way too much, it's probably going to be the bad one.
Yeah. It is I get it. Like, sometimes you'll write a character that genuinely would make these horrific decisions. Like, I get that. It's when, but I don't know, perhaps I'm pigeonholing a bit too much because, I don't tend to play a lot of, like, in effect, non-good campaigns. But like, if your character's making bad decisions and not feeling remorseless, is doing it for gain, is, in inverted commas, actually going south on the alignment table towards the evil row, if you have no inkling that you want that to change and you're just doing it to gain an advantage of some sort, like,
or using it to justify bad behavior, right?
Yeah, you're trying to justify bad behavior that you know is bad. You're trying to win D&D, like, or RPG or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, at that point, like, because realistically, no one else at the table is really kind of on the same page as you if you're doing that. Like, if they are there to have I mean, I could be wrong. Perhaps you've got a table full of "it's what my characters would do," in which case I pity the poor games master who's running that table.
Yeah, but he could just turn around and be like, "Well, that's what a world would do."
It's almost like an unspoken code, isn't it? It's what my character would do, cool, but is it fun?
Yeah.
For everyone.
I've got an interesting question, and actually relates to the Cormier campaign.
Yes.
Because there was a moment in the campaign when we had to vote on which side we were going to choose, Ragers or Obscure. The Obscure?
Yep.
What's his name?
Yep. So the very end of Arc 1.
And I would like your thought on the "that's what my character would do" moment I had with Magnus.
Yeah.
Because that moment happened. And that was an easy decision. It wasn't, because it wasn't necessarily amusing or fun or entertaining.
Yeah.
But it kind of was what my character would do.
I mean, as a player on that side of the table, it was fine because it wasn't.
So, well, just for context, At the end of the first arc of Call Me of Echoes of War, which is before what we see on the channel,
Pre-YouTube.
The players had saved Queen Raedra from an assassination attempt, but the courts had kind of fallen apart. Public opinion was weighing against her, and she was all but forced to abdicate. However, her decision on whether to abdicate or not was, I ended up giving the decision to the players, and they would have to vote for Raedra or her older cousin Ezred Oberskir. Do we keep Raedra and go to war with our elven neighbours, or do we go with Ezred and maybe not cause a bit of
the choice between a boot and a boot?
The boot and a boot. And everyone except Anton's original character Magnus voted for Ezred.
That's what his character would do.
Yeah, and that was difficult because it wasn't really fun for the other players. It wasn't really entertaining. I don't know if that was legitimate or not.
No, I disagree with that, because it was very entertaining, because you're right. It's one of those moments where you could utter the phrase, "It's what my character would do," and we'd sit there and be like, yeah, that's exactly what Magnus would do.
It felt real.
It felt real and right. I think if we're going to use an example of maybe when it nearly ended up derailing the game, would have probably been one of my scenes.
Oh.
I think that was
the burning of the tavern.
The burning of the tavern, because
that was close.
It was a story moment that me and Dan had discussed from the start. So it wasn't like I threw it out of nowhere, but I had kept it secret, even from my wife, who constantly asked me, "Is like, what you actually doing with Katya?" And I was like, "Oh, you'll never know." And then there was the moment where she goes to the tavern in disguise. She'd bought an alchemist fire early on. She walked up on stage, announced to everyone that she had been here before, and the players are sitting there like, "Oh, what's she gonna do?" And then she lobs the alchemist fire at the bar. Yeah. To which Dan at that point is like, it was a good stopping point. Oh, no one enjoyed that. I got a lot of flack for that.
No, as a player, I loved it. I thought it was great, fantastic. As a character, hated it. Because I was playing a lawful, ex-cop war wizard, right? Literally, I have to deal with a criminal now as a character. I'm like, oh, what were they gonna do? As a player, I loved it.
Yeah,
that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think because afterwards, once we had the chance to discuss it, it was accepted. But it definitely felt like, to start with, if I look back on it, it definitely felt like I had a moment of, yeah, but that's what my character would do, because literally that's all she wanted to do. That was her entire point of being. Luckily we made it work, and it became more of the other version where it's like, no, actually we understand why you do it, because once she got to explain why she did it, I think that's when people were like, actually this makes more sense.
I think both your moment and Magnus's, when choosing for the queen, are both quite similar in that they weren't necessarily fun, entertaining, but they were poignant. They had meaning behind them that was greater than what. Yeah.
But it's things like that as long as those moments aren't, they might be to start with, especially if they're a big story moment with your DM, maybe they're not so much, but that's what my character would do. If even your DM is sitting there going, "The fuck are you doing?" Maybe this is a bad, but that's what my character would do.
And make it occasional, not repetitive. If you're doing this every session, if Katya's lobbing grenades at shops every session, I'm going, too much.
Remember, there are still 3 taverns left on her list. And we've been purposely staying, you know what they are, we've been staying away from them. But if we ever end up going there, you're going to have to search her bag beforehand.
At this point, just hire Magnus to lob fireballs. He'll be happy.
Yeah, it's very much, I think the frequency is an important thing, because if you can keep it's what my characters would do's constructive, but infrequent enough that they're important when they happen, then that, if nothing else, it helps everyone around the table kind of identify with your character that much more. And And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to be swinging for the fences whenever you do it. It's what my character would do. Like, I have had it's what my character would do moment, and I killed one of my own characters. So, Carl was actually, Carl and Anton were both there.
It was,
at the very, very start of the Prince of the Apocalypse campaign. We were fighting a necromancer who was trying to summon Orcus. I was playing a dwarf barbarian who, in the kind of last few moments of the combat, realized everything was about to go south. So, to protect the rest of the party, he rugby tackled the necromancer through the portal of death. Died.
Exactly.
We're paraphrasing.
No,
paraphrasing.
Here's a very bad example of what I did, because my character followed you.
Oh,
and
yes!
That's this shows you. This was like my 5th session of D&D. That's a really bad example of that's what my character would do, because it kind of like stole like the meaning of what you did. My character also jumped in. It was like, what?
It was a difference of like, oh my god, Algrim's jumped in. Wait, is Lyfan jumping in as well? Like,
yeah, I think I definitely, because I remember talking to you afterwards. It's like, why did he do that?
Yes. I was like, that's what my character would do.
Yeah, it was definitely what I was. I think,
but like it's a bad example of it. It wasn't destructive. It was just stupid. I think is really what it was.
I think there's definitely been, from my memory, there's definitely been that's what my character would do moment from one of our players in our old 4th edition game, where they've done it, but they did it when the rest of the party were not around, because they wanted to stress how much of a scumbag their character was.
Yeah.
Without ruining the enjoyment from everyone else.
I think it's telling that I know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
And you haven't
Yeah, I think we beat up some bad guys and we left one of them alive because we wanted information, and we basically promised him his life. The characters talk to him and he gives them the information, and they're like, well, you deserve your life, walked off. And then the rogue is like, oh, I've dropped my dagger somewhere. Obviously, as players, we're like, what are you doing? But at that point, keeping it, he persuaded us with a insanely high persuasion check, and the rest of us were like, okay, clearly, no problem, walk off. But we're all sitting there like, what are you going to do?
Basically a PvP persuasion check.
Yeah. And as soon as we all left, he'd look down to the guy and killed him, because that's what his character would do.
But that's actually a smart way of doing it, I think. Right?
I mean, at first we were quite annoyed with him because we were like, dude, what do we do? But then as time went on, it was like, well, actually, that wasn't disruptive. The rest of our characters don't know. And he justified it well. And I think that was one of those rare moments of the scumbag sort of, but that's what my character would do, in a way that was non-disruptive, because as a party, none of them know this assassin is now dead. The only person who knows was the rogue. Mm-hmm. And he's enjoyed that moment because he got to do something his character would do. He got to do something a little bit naughty. But the rest of us, as players, we know. And, okay, we were a little bit annoyed by it. But as characters, it doesn't change how we feel about the rogue. Yeah. He hasn't done anything wrong. He just dropped his dagger somewhere.
That's a good way of doing it. That assassin back later for a revenge mission.
Exactly, yeah. So I think in that one, that is one of those rare moments where the bad way of doing it actually worked out well because it was non-disruptive.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough.
Interesting.
And you can have that, but again, it's about moderation, because he didn't do it like every time. It was, for him, it was a big moment of like, I think he got really badly hurt in that fight, so it was kind of more of like I really want to get revenge on this guy kind of thing. If I remember correctly, he was like almost KO'd, so it was kind of then. Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh no, we're fine. Yeah, we'll leave this guy alive.
So that's really interesting. There's a lot more ways than I thought there would be of actually having those that's what my character would do moments that aren't negative. I was thinking just about the negative, but there's actually positives to it.
Well, I think when I started this, I was worried that we would go more into the negatives, but as we go along, I realized it can actually be a really good roleplay tool. But that's what my character would do. Or, as the better way of doing it, but that's what my character would do.
But I think we said it has to be infrequent and in moderation and non-disruptive.
Yeah. Oh, well, that bell, that means it's last orders. So finish up your drinks, because the tavern will be closing soon. Anton, Dan, where can people find you?
Anton,
Sure.
go.
Yeah, I can be found on Twitter at TBD_Anton, and I sometimes tweet things that you may read. Find me on there.
It's getting more frequent, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Dan?
So, yes, you can find me on Twitter at DMDanT. You can find me on Instagram at DMDMT. And you can find us on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. Hooray!
Yay!
Where we are playing Cormier Echoes of War and other games now. Hurrah!
Yay!
True, correct, yeah.
You can find me at Group Stormbear. That's GROOP Stormbear. That's both Twitter and Instagram. And you can find us here at the tavern at Tavern Between. That's again both Instagram and Twitter. All of these will be linked down below. And will, for the people watching the video, if you missed it, it will pop up at the end. But at this point now, the tavern is closing, so be careful as you go. One of the dimensions is starting to shift slightly to the left, and gravity is kind of following it, so do be careful on your way out. But until next time, see you later, guys.
Ta-ra.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Release segments like this from the Tavern Between Dimensions every Friday here on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. Otherwise, if you want to listen to the episode in full, you can check us out on Spotify and Amazon Music.